Welcome to 15-Minute Fundamentals, where we break down crypto projects and learn about the drivers behind the data you see on our charts. Today, I'm joined by Joe Flanagan, co-founder of Maple Finance, a lending protocol built for institutional borrowers. Hey Joe, welcome to the 15-Minute Fundamentals. Great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Great to be here. Really stoked.
Perfect. I mean, it would be great to kick off just before we dive in with a 2-3 minute intro on Maple Finance for those that might not yet be familiar.
Yeah, sure. So Maple Finance is an institutional capital market, and we're currently built on Ethereum only, and excitingly launching on Solana in the coming weeks. And so what that means is that Maple is a protocol that enables institutional borrowers to borrow from the DeFi ecosystem. And so, speaking to the protocol and the way that it works is that lenders are able to supply capital into pools, and that pool, the capital that's been supplied into those pools is then lent out to these institutional borrowers. And the unique feature of Maple is that each of these pools is managed by a role we call the pool delegate. And so they're responsible for the underwriting, the due diligence of these institutional borrowers, and then negotiating terms with them. And so what that enables is for under-collateralized lending to happen. So everyone will be familiar with Aave and Compound and over-collateralized lending that's dominated the DeFi ecosystem since DeFi even was created back in the summer of 2020. And what we're enabling with Maple is for true credit creation to happen. So companies are able to borrow under-collateralized and source capital in a capital efficient way so that they can continue to grow their businesses. And to date, we've had great adoption with this model. We've been focused on crypto native market makers, and they've been able to continue growing their business with the supply of capital from Maple. And as we continue to expand, we'll look into other borrower verticals. But the real thing that Maple's providing is a capital market infrastructure. So we're not lending capital ourselves. We're providing the infrastructure that enables all of this capital flows and borrowing to occur. And we see that as being something that can scale from where we are today into the tens of billions into the future.
Great, thank you. Diving right into the fundamentals, we could start off with revenue. Can you walk me through Maple's business model and how you're generating cash flow at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So there are two main revenue streams that exist on the Maple protocol. And for the Maple Treasury itself, or for the Maple DAO, the main source of income is from establishment fees. So when a borrower sources capital and takes out a loan on Maple, they pay an establishment fee. And so that's currently set at 1%, and 66 bips, or 2/3 of that, goes to the Maple Treasury, and 1/3 goes to the pool delegate, the person responsible for underwriting and agreeing the terms with that borrower. And so that's the main source of capital or cash flows and revenue to the Maple protocol. In terms of other revenues that happen on the platform, then there is what we label the ongoing fee. And so that's a portion of interest that is provided to the pool delegate for their role of underwriting, and then to a separate role and function that is called cover. And so people are able to post Maple tokens in combination with USDC to a cover reserve that protects lending capital. So in the event of default, cover providers would be liquidated first, protecting the lenders that then sit above them and have provided the lending capital to the borrowers. And so the way that it works is that ongoing fee is a portion of the interest revenues generated by that pool. And the typical model that you'll see is that 10% of the interest will go to the pool delegate, 10% will go to the cover reserve, and therefore 80% goes to the lenders that are providing the capital to the borrowers. And so, to date, we've been able to issue over $1 billion in loan originations. We've currently got active liquidity of around 825 million. And so you can imagine that there's obviously significant interest revenues that are coming from the protocol. But the majority of that goes to the lenders, with these roles that are really key to the protocol still being able to earn really a capital efficient cash flows for the roles that they're performing.
Got it. So 2/3 of the establishment fees go to the protocol, which can be seen here as the dark blue bar, and the rest is split between different supply side participants. And looking at the chart here, you can see that the revenues are spread out quite a bit, and someone watching might be wondering why they're not coming in on a daily basis. Do you want to explain why that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, why it looks a little bit lumpy is that there's two functions. So one is that obviously the ongoing fee is as a loan is taken out, and so that occurs day to day. And so you'll see over the Christmas period there's a real lull there because no loans were originating whenever everyone was on holidays, and so that's why on a day-to-day basis there is sometimes a big loan will be taken out, and therefore there would be a big influx of cash flow into the Maple Treasury, versus on other days where no loans are taken out and then there would be none. But if you were to streamline this across a period of time, you can see that the protocol revenues have been increasing dramatically, and that's a function of the amount of active liquidity in the platform and the amount of loan originations that's happening. That's it. Yeah, perfect switch.
Yeah, so establishment fees generate cash flow when a new loan is taken out, and the ongoing fees are distributed to the supply side participants according to a loan's repayment schedule, hence the gaps in between. Yeah, and as you mentioned, looking at the cumulative view here, your revenue has been growing at a good pace, as has the borrowing volume, as we can see on the key metrics chart, which I'd like to ask about because if we look at the lending market in general, we've been witnessing a slight downtrend in both revenue and borrowing volume on the largest protocols, as you can see here. Can you walk me through the drivers behind Maple's growth as you're kind of going against the trend here, and what are you doing differently?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think obviously the biggest thing for us is that we need to continue sourcing new liquidity and new lending capital, and that will then enable us to originate more and more loans. So we have the benefit of liquidity and capital cycling that's already in the protocol, but then bringing in new lender capital is super important for the continuation of our growth. And so what we've really seen over the last few months is you can see there that there was a bit of a flattening over the Christmas period, when no new lending capital was coming in, or net between new lending capital and withdrawals was around zero. And then we've continued to be able to ramp that up. And so what we've seen over the last 2.5-3 months is a real broader adoption of Maple and understanding that we are an institutional capital market that's providing a differentiated offering. So what you'll see with a lot of yield generating products that exist in DeFi is that it's only an inflationary token model, really, where you're not able to have underlying real cash flows that are coming from companies. And so that's what Maple provides. People are able to lend into a pool and provide capital to a real business that's generating real cash flows. And part of those cash flows that business generates is then being paid back for the ability to access capital from Maple. And so that we see that as the real differentiator in what we're providing. We're providing true credit creation and actual cash flows from real businesses. And the fact that people in DeFi are able to access that potentially for the first time is really exciting.
Awesome. And going a bit deeper into the actual composition of the borrowing volume at the moment, in the very beginning in the intro, you touched upon that you're tapping into under-collateralized loans, which is a massive market, interesting in itself. How does the loan approval process work, as Maple, at least at the moment, is exclusive to institutional and corporate borrowers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that it works is that all potential borrowers on the Maple platform go through a KYC AML process. And that's performed by us in order to become an approved borrower on Maple. Then once you're an approved borrower on Maple, you're able to access the various pools that exist and therefore interact with the pool delegates that are on the platform. And so they are the roles that control whilst they are never custodying the funds, they're the ones that control the interaction with the borrowers to negotiate the terms and determine whether they're a worthy borrower to originate a loan from their pool. And so that's our real, if you like, bottleneck and gateway to the growth of the platform. We have the bottleneck in that they're performing the credit due diligence and ensuring only the best and most reputable borrowers come to the platform, but we're able to have many pool delegates across many borrower verticals into the future that will enable real scalable growth. And so that's where Maple is an infrastructure and a platform, not necessarily a lender. And so that's why we really see ourselves as being a technology company that will be able to facilitate an entire ecosystem and marketplace for borrowers to access all of their capital needs and lenders to access a bunch of different yield opportunities.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, building on that, how do you see the composition of the borrowing volume developing in the future?
Yeah. it's an interesting one because to date we've been solely focused on crypto native market makers, and they've been a great source of risk return for lenders into the Maple protocol. These guys that we enable as borrowers on the platform are delta neutral, so they're not taking any market risk or any price of Bitcoin risk, if you like, so that they're only taking an arbing spreads. And that's been lucrative for us and been a great catalyst for growth and being the right risk dynamic for us to really enter the market and build a platform from scratch. As we look to the future, we want to break out into other borrower verticals. We still think there's a lot of growth that can be enabled through the market making sector. But our next real priority from a borrower vertical perspective is crypto miners. And so we'll be looking to launch in the next quarter a crypto mining pool and then expand that offering to a broader subset of crypto miners. We've seen a real development in that ecosystem where much more of the hash rate's moving back to North America. And so we think there's a real opportunity there for us and the pools that we can create there. And then longer term, we see ourselves developing into being not necessarily just crypto native borrowers. There's the potential for SaaS and fintech companies to come to the platform and access capital. And then longer down, when you really think about there's DeFi, there's TradFi, and the two are very segmented. We think in 5 years' time, or potentially even less, that'll just become finance again, and Maple can be a real instigator for that transition and for TradFi participants to access capital as a borrower and to lend capital through the Maple platform.
So lots of new use cases for future growth. That's great to hear. I mean, in the previous question, you spoke a bit about the pool Delegates, and I know that they play a really crucial role in the whole ecosystem. How do you choose the pool Delegates? And follow up is, how is counterparty risk managed?
Yeah, so when we launched, we started with 2 pool delegates, or we started with 1, and then was shortly followed by Maven joining. To date, we haven't really expanded that too much further. We've onboarded Block Tower, which are a super reputable hedge fund in the space, and that have real credit expertise. But they're currently only using the platform to provide their own capital. And they'll shortly, in the next month or two, will enable external capital to be provided into the pool. And so the progression that we've made is when we launched, we started with 2 permissionless pools in that anyone could participate as a lender. And the pools that we've launched subsequent to that have been majority focused on permission pools. And so this really plays into the institutional theme where KYC, AML processes are really important to a lot of institutions. And so we only allow whitelisted KYC'd AML participants into some of our permission pools. So that's the Alameda pool that you will see on the platform, which is a single borrower pool where only Alameda is accessing capital from that pool. And there's only KYC AML'd accredited investors that are providing capital. And then similarly, as you would have seen more recently, was the launch of the Celsius pool. And so they are only providing their lending capital into the pool and are able to use Maple as an infrastructure and a service so that they can manage their loan book on our platform.
Got it. And my final question is related to capital efficiency. Firstly, what is the average loan duration on Maple?
Yeah, so typically we when we launched, we started with 90 days. The average borrower now that has built up a reputation as being borrowing with us for a while would borrow for a 180-day term. Okay.
So, and from that, what is the average loan turnover rate? So from a capital efficiency perspective, how many times can you take an establishment fee from the same liquidity?
Yeah, so if we said that our average was towards the back end of that 180 days, then we would be able to turn our capital twice a year. But the important thing to remember, and this is an update we made more recently, maybe 2-3 months ago on the establishment fee, is it's an annualized rate. And so we don't punish or make the borrower pay an establishment fee that's fixed at a portion of the loan that they're taking out every time they take out a loan. It's annualized based on the term of their loan. And so that means that whether a borrower takes out a loan for a year or for 1 month, Maple is effectively earning the same amount.
Okay, great. Thank you. I mean, that's on the dot about 15 minutes. Is there anything else on the future of Maple that you'd want to talk about that we didn't discuss yet?
Yeah, no, I think we touched on all of the new borrower verticals that we can potentially expand into, and I think everyone hopefully has a good context of us being a capital marketplace and infrastructure that will enable broad adoption of institutional lending using DeFi technology. The only other thing I'd add is that we've got some exciting updates coming to tokenomics with the introduction of XMPL, and maybe in the show notes we can post a link to our recent article around some of the big updates that are coming to MPL tokenomics that will add a lot of incentive and use case for being a Maple token holder, as well as other opportunities that will present for people to participate in the ecosystem and marketplace that we're building.
Awesome. We'll make sure to add that to the show notes so anybody interested can go read more. But at this stage, thanks a lot, Joe. This was awesome. Great overview.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks, mate.